host. I'm Neil Piano, and once again we got another great day of sports ahead of us here on this beautiful weekend. So without further ado, let's get right to it. First thing we're going to talk about today is Major League Baseball. Obviously, now we're a couple weeks. It's been a couple weeks since we've seen the last game of the World Series, and now we're kind of into the off season. You know, some teams are letting players go. They're trying to re-sign players, train for players. You know, off season in baseball is kind of a fun time for a lot of baseball fans because we get to see, you know, who's going to be on whose team. You know, they're going to be new guys on a team. You know, is one team trying to build up their team so that they can push to win the World Series this upcoming year. We'll have to see. But one thing that is another interesting thing that isn't talked about too much, but definitely was talked about the last couple of days. That's the MLB awards, as a few of them were just announced the last couple of days. And we're going to start off with the MVP awards in the American League. And this was a little bit of a surprise. New Jersey native Mike Trout wins his second MVP award of his career. So I was actually very surprised when I heard that he won it. Obviously, he had a very good season, and it looked like to me that, you know, getting 100 RBIs, it's very impressive. I'm sure that in a lot of people's minds, they thought that this was a down year for him. I personally don't think so. And I think that, you know, on his team, which, you know, the Angels really had a very bad season, he did a very good job of staying consistent as he's been throughout his career. So I give him a lot of credit for that. I think the only other guy in the American League that I thought had a shot at winning it, more than him, was probably Mookie Betts of the Boston Red Sox. A lot of people were talking about him throughout the entire year and constantly mentioning that he was the front runner to win the MVP. So again, you know, I thought maybe he was going to win it, but I was pleasantly surprised when I heard Mike Trout won it. So congratulations to him. You know, it's another New Jersey guy, you know, doing very well to represent the state. And so again, kudos to him. Congratulations on your second MVP award, and hopefully this will be the second of hopefully many more. In the National League, let's check out the National League, and it was Chris Bryant, third baseman for the Chicago Cubs. And how can you blame him for not winning? I mean, really, he was definitely a big contributor to the Cubs throughout the entire season, helped them be the most dominant team in the regular season, and obviously helped them win the World Series and, you know, finally break the 100-plus year curse. So I'm not really shocked that he won the MVP. He was really the guy that stood out the most in the National League. He really tore it up. A lot of people say, what about Bryce Harper? I mean, Bryce Harper did Bryce Harper things, but I don't feel like he really had an MVP season. He obviously helped the Nationals make the postseason, but when it came down to crunch time, unfortunately, he didn't deliver. But, you know, that's not fully on his shoulders. But since he is the main guy and he's the franchise player for the Nationals, he gets a lot more criticism, which I don't think is right, but that's just the situation. But going back to Chris Bryant, again, I think he totally deserved to win the MVP. He was, without a doubt, the best player in the National League, and he was one of the bigger, if not the biggest, reason the Cubs won it all this year. So let's shift now to the Cy Young Awards. And another New Jersey native took home the American League Cy Young Award. That was Rick Porcello. The Montclair native for the Boston Red Sox finished the year leading the American League in wins with 22. And I'm not really shocked that he won it. I know that there's some people out there that thought maybe a few other guys should have won it, but I think Rick Porcello had the best season of all. I mean, obviously J.A. Happ of the Toronto Blue Jays with 21 victories, he definitely came out of nowhere to have a good season, but so did Rick Porcello. I don't think a lot of people expected either one of these two to have the season that they did. But Porcello is one of the bigger reasons that the Red Sox made the postseason and that they won the American League East. And basically you have to realize that he had such a dominant year. He really looked locked and loaded every single time. Even in the games where he didn't get the victory or got a no decision, he looked locked and ready. So, yeah, Rick Porcello getting the AL Cy Young, so kudos to him. So you have two guys from Jersey getting the two of the most prestige awards you can get for an individual in Major League Baseball. So it's very nice to see that guys from Jersey are making a name for themselves. So congratulations to Rick Porcello on winning the American League Cy Young. Over to the National League side, this was a little bit of more surprise in my opinion. Max Scherzer winning the NL Cy Young for the Washington Nationals. Very surprising, to be honest with you. Obviously, I'm having a tough time thinking about who else. I mean, obviously, Clayton Kershaw could have been possibly a candidate. John Lester, could have been a candidate, from the Cubs. Max Scherzer, I mean, I didn't hear very much about how dominant he was, but I heard that he was obviously the Nationals' ace with Steven Strasburg late in the year, struggling and then having to go down due to injury. He really stepped it up when it came down to it to help the Nationals win the division and get into the postseason. So that was definitely big for Scherzer. So maybe in a way he definitely does, the way his stats look and the way it seems him team-wise, he seemed to have pitched very, very well for that team. So I give him a lot of credit, and kudos to him for winning the NL Cy Young. So the Nationals got, I don't know, the Nationals haven't got many individual awards in their history. Obviously, Bryce Harper with the NL MVP, but this is something that Max Scherzer is probably very proud of, and hopefully he can continue to build on that and hopefully help the Nationals get to that next level going forward. Now let's shift to the managers. Manager of the Year. In the American League, it was Terry Francona of the Cleveland Indians. And I mean, come on. How could you not pick this guy? He, obviously going into the World Series, he was 9-0. 8-0 in the World Series. And he led a team that, starting the year, was probably not even projected to make the playoffs. But they were able to come away with not only winning the division, but going all the way to the World Series and finishing one victory shy of winning a World Championship for the first time in, I believe, 54 years, I believe. And so, he seems like one of the only guys that would be able to do that, and I give him a lot of credit. He did a fantastic job with that team. Obviously, not the world's greatest amount of talent. We got with only a few players like Francisco Lindor and Jason Kipnis, but heads up the way he used Andrew Miller and Corey Kluber. He did a fantastic job with that bullpen, and he seemed to, at times, push the right buttons. And, obviously, it would have been nice to see him win the World Series. Then he would have been easily the best manager in baseball this year. But, still, you got to give him a ton of credit for the amount of work that he did. He did a tremendous job from mid-June, when the Cavaliers won the NBA championship, to the end of the season. They were one of the better teams in baseball. Probably the best team in the American League. Because at one time they won, I believe, 16 in a row. And they were talked about saying, maybe this is the year the Indians go to the World Series. And when they recorded that last out in Toronto to win the American League championship, it came true. The dream came true that the Cleveland Indians made the World Series. Now, obviously, Cleveland fans are still waiting for the Browns to win just one game, but, that's on a different topic that we won't go into. But again, congratulations to Terry Francona. He did a tremendous job leading that Indians team to the World Series and winning an American League pennant. So congratulations to him, and hopefully, this loss in Game 7 could motivate them to want to go back and win it all this time. Now let's shift to the National League. And this was interesting because I heard from several sources that Joe Madden for the Chicago Cubs was the front runner to win the NL Manager of the Year. And I mean, how could you not want him? Because he comes in just his second year with the Chicago Cubs and leads them to the World Series championship, and finally breaks the 108-year curse of the Chicago Cubs. And he pressed all the right buttons. He knew exactly what was the perfect time to put in a player, and he had the right group of guys around him that believed in what he was trying to do and were able to win it all. But he didn't win it, actually. The manager that won it was Dave Roberts, his first year with the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I could see it, actually. He led the Dodgers to the postseason in his first year. He led them to the National League Championship Series and finished so close. He finished 2 wins away from possibly taking the Dodgers to the World Series, beating Joe Madden's Cubs. So, obviously, you look at where the Dodgers were starting the year, obviously with Don Mattingly getting fired and then, being hired by the Miami Marlins. Everybody was trying to figure out who's the new manager. Dave Roberts, if Dave Roberts' name sounds familiar, you may have, this is hard for Yankee fans to talk about, but definitely for Red Sox fans it's nice. That Dave Roberts was a utility player on the Boston Red Sox in 2004, and he had a memorable play in Game 4 of the American League Championship Series in 2004 against the Yankees, when the Yankees were up 3-0, looking to try to continue, at that time, the 86-year curse of the Boston Red Sox. But he stole second base and came around to score the tying run. He eventually came around to score the tying run And the Red Sox, from that point on, came all the way back and beat the Yankees in 7 and went on to win the World Series and break the 86-year curse. And all it took was one little play, one stole a base. If he doesn't steal that, or if he steals it and gets tagged out, the Yankees probably wouldn't, go to the World Series, and the Red Sox maybe or maybe not would still be cursed, and it would be more than 100 years at this point. But look, Dave Roberts, first year as a manager, he did a fantastic job. I mean, you got to give him a lot of credit for the job that he did. Obviously, he had some talent with guys like Chase Utley, Carlos Ruiz, and I'm naming former Phillies here, Clayton Kershaw, Yasiel Puig. He did an interesting job with Yasiel Puig, knowing that Puig was struggling throughout most of June and July, sent him down to the minor leagues, let him constantly develop. He's still a young player, so it takes time. But it's just, he let him develop, get a little bit better, and was able to come back and help this team make the playoffs. And I think that the Dodgers at times were one of the better teams in the National League, and I think that it's just interesting to see how everything goes. And, obviously that was a very good job. And congratulations to all the winners in the MLB Awards this year. And, obviously I'm a little excited. A couple more months until February when pitchers and catchers report. So it should be fun for the next couple months to see what players happen in the offseason. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about some NFL. There's a few things that have gone on, with stuff like Tony Romo making some comments about Dak Prescott. And, the Jets did something this last week that I've been talking about the last couple weeks. So we'll talk about that when we get back here on the NVP Show.
When it's time for Jersey Mike's to give a sub some sizzle, this is the way. The way it's always been. The way it always should be. The way it always will be. Because that's just the way it's supposed to be. Jersey Mike's. Be a sub above.
My dream job is to run and manage my own spa one day.
To be the general manager for the Jumeirah Hotel in Abu Dhabi, Dubai.
I feel that Mercier's has prepared me very well for my future in the hospitality industry.
The kitchen is incredible.
You are planning the meal, doing all the costing and the recipes. You're in charge of everything going on in the kitchen.
They really do get you prepared, and they want to make sure that you have a job after college.
When it comes to injuries,
they're not all created equal.
That's why at Performance Spine and Sports Medicine,
our team of doctors will coordinate and customize your care
to provide the best treatment options using the area's most advanced medical technology.
All with one goal in mind.
To get you back in the game.
We call life.
Pain-free.
Drug-free.
Surgery-free. That's what we do here at Performance Spine and Sports Medicine.
Get better faster.
Stay better longer.
Saving your business money is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Tanker Consulting Services, a payment solutions expert, will show you how with a free, detailed, written analysis illustrating your cost savings. We usually uncover savings between 10 and 25%, and sometimes more. We can help your business succeed by providing reliable and secure merchant payment solutions such as merchant services programs, point-of-sale systems, and ATM machines. TCS, one of the leaders in regional credit card processing consulting, offers electronic payments to merchants locally and nationwide through our preferred vendor programs. We work to keep business costs down with a comprehensive suite of quality products, services, and customized credit card processing programs exclusively tailored for your company. TCS is convenient, reliable, and innovative, with customer service available 24/7, 365 days a year. Our in-depth industry.
Welcome back here to the MVP Show. I'm your host, Neil Piano. So let's continue on with our sports stories. Next thing we're going to talk about, let's talk some NFL. Obviously, now we're into week 11. Week 12. No, week 11, I believe. Yeah, the NFL season. Obviously, we're getting closer and closer to the postseason, and you're starting to. At this time, you're starting to see teams that are definitely not making the playoffs, and then teams that are definitely making the playoffs. And then you have those teams that are, kind of in the middle that you're not sure where they're going to be, and it's only going to, we'll know more as we get closer and closer, and towards the end of the year, we'll finally know, who's in and who's out. But let's do a couple games. Let's talk about the Eagles first. Tomorrow, I believe, they're playing the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle, and that might be one of the tougher games that the Eagles have to play this year. Obviously, they're taking on a Seahawks team that's coming off a lot of momentum after last Sunday night's victory over the New England Patriots. And that defense, the Legion of Boom for the Seattle Seahawks, definitely shut down Tom Brady. That was the first time, I believe, since the Super Bowl loss in 2014 that the Seahawks had played Tom Brady. So obviously they wanted some revenge, and boy did they get it. And they proved that Sunday night that they're one of the better teams, if not the best team in the NFC. Obviously, if you look at the Cowboys, you could say, well, why aren't they? Well, still, the Seahawks are in that discussion. They played a tremendous game. Russell Wilson hasn't had the best year. Obviously, he's dealt with some injuries. But he's stayed consistent and has helped his team to a very good record and in first place in the NFC West. And obviously, like I said, possibly one of the better teams in the NFC. But that defense, the Legion of Boom, they've lost a couple guys in the last 2-3 years. But they're still a dominant defense with guys like Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas and a few other guys. I mean, they're still, and Cam Chancellor, they're still a good team. They're still a tremendous defense. And this is going to be one of the tougher tests for rookie quarterback Carson Wentz. He obviously the Eagles have been struggling the last couple of weeks. At first, I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but now as I'm starting to watch it, it seems like they're slowly starting to have a lot of problems. 2 weeks ago, I went to go see them play the Giants at MetLife, and they looked good. But they were hanging around. That game they were playing like they were just hanging around, hopefully trying to get an opportunity to win the game at the end. And they did get an opportunity at the end, but could not pounce on it. But for Carson Wentz, this is a game where this is a game that's really going to possibly help him mature a lot. Going to a hostile territory in one of the loudest, if not the loudest stadium in the NFL. The 12th man, and it's very noisy there, very hard to communicate. So, and I was hearing earlier in the week that the Eagles were, practicing, when they were having their practices, they were practicing with loud noises, and they were trying to say, hey, we're ready for this noise. But I don't think you can fully be prepared for it and be ready to play in it until you actually get to the game and you're under center, as Carson Wentz will be, with all the noise around him. So we'll have to wait and see. But, it's just, it's tough for me to see the Eagles coming away with a victory here. Do I think they're going to have some success? Yeah, I think that they're not going to get fully shut down. But if, like I've said the last couple of weeks, if the Eagles receivers are not consistent, if they constantly are dropping passes that should be caught, then Carson Wentz is going to have no success. And you can't really blame him for that. You can't blame him if he throws a perfect pass down the sidelines for 50 yards and the receiver just drops it. How can you blame Carson Wentz for that? So basically, Wentz knows that he has to rely a lot on possibly his receivers making plays, like I said, and he also has to rely on guys like Ryan Matthews, his running back, and his offensive line to get him a good running game to maybe help set up the pass, even though I'm the guy who says the pass sets up the run, not the other way around. But for the Eagles defense, look, this is a game that they could possibly make some plays. Like I said, Russell Wilson hasn't had the greatest year. And if the Eagles can force him to run around, obviously with his bad ankle, it could possibly hurt him. But, Russell Wilson is a very tough guy, and he does not want to leave the game. So, and I haven't seen another quarterback in the game in a regular season for the Seahawks in quite some time. So it would definitely be interesting if Russell Wilson doesn't get in, has to sit down for a period of time. But, all in all, I don't think the Eagles are going to come away with a victory here. I think, my prediction is going to be 24-13 Seattle. I think the Seahawks will definitely be able to move the ball. I think that their defense, obviously, they're going to be riding a wave of momentum after that victory over the Patriots last week. And so I think that they might underestimate the Eagles. Who knows? But I think that the Seahawks are going to come out and play with a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm. And the Eagles, obviously, they know that they have to be careful with some of the things they do. They can't force a lot of things down the field because they know that Earl Thomas and Richard Sherman are going to be able to make plays. If you allow them to make some plays. That whole defense is going to feed off that and feed off that energy and just make it a very tough day for Carson Wentz. So this does not look good for the Eagles, and it looks like it's going to be another loss, but we'll have to wait and see. Now let's talk about the New York Giants. They've won several games in a row. They're on track 6-3, second place in the NFC East, and they just came off their victory over the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, another close game, and my heart can only take so much. I mean, but you know what? A win is a win. Obviously, I would like to have at least one or two blowout victories, but beggars can't be choosers, and so as a Giants fan, I have to realize that a win is a win, and that's the most important thing, and that's what I'm liking. They're winning games. They're closing games that they were not able to do last year, and that is what's huge for me. The fact that their defense has been able to make plays to stop their opponents and win the game is the best thing I've seen all year. But let's preview this game coming up. The Giants have a lot to play for. Obviously, they're trying to go for another win, trying to move to 7-3 and keep pace. And they're trying to make the playoffs. An accomplishment that has been very tough to do in the last couple of years, since actually 2011 when they last won the Super Bowl. So it's kind of they're trying to get on track. Obviously, there's still Giants fans out there that don't like Ben McAdoo. I personally still am not wild about him, but he has done better than what Tom Coughlin did last year, and a lot of that is not on Tom Coughlin. By the way, he just got put in the Giants Ring of Honor last Monday night for the Giants, so congratulations to him. But what I'm saying is that Ben McAdoo has slowly been able to find ways to get the ball rolling, especially offensively. He's an offensive guy. He needs to focus a little bit more on his offense and let the defensive guys worry about that, because he's an offensive guy. He got hired because of his offensive talent, and so he basically realized that he has to focus on that because he needs to help this Giants team get to at least 30 points, at least at some point, because they know when they play teams like the Cowboys or the Packers again or some of the other teams, they have to find ways to get those points because because if they can't do that, they're not going to have much success. They're having success now, but they gotta find a way to get this offense rolling. For the Chicago Bears, they're coming in very weak. Obviously, with Kyle Long, their best defensive player, out with an injury, and Alshon Jeffrey's also out, their best wide receiver, due to suspension. Jay Cutler doesn't have a lot to work with, and neither does the defense of the Bears. The last time the Bears came to MetLife was in 2010, and I was actually at that game. That day, the Giants defense knocked out Jay Cutler, and they also knocked out, I believe, Jason Collins is his name. They knocked out the starting quarterback and the backup quarterback, and they had to put in their third string, Club Haney. I don't think a lot of people know who Club Haney is, but the Giants finished with 10 sacks on a Monday Night Football game. That was big. That was a big defensive game, and obviously I would love to see another defensive game like that, but I think the Giants have a very good shot of winning this game. I don't think the Bears are really a scary opponent, but you can't take any team for granted in the NFL. You don't get to the NFL if you don't have some sort of talent. But obviously if the Giants can get to Jay Cutler and frustrate him, it's going to be a long day for the Bears. And the Giants know that this secondary and this defense by the Bears isn't great. This is an opportunity for them to, again, open up their offense, get the ball moving. Eli Manning threw a touchdown pass to three different guys. Adams, who got his first career touchdown reception on Monday night. Odell Beckham got one, and Sterling Shepard got one. Obviously, we know Victor Cruz is out, and who knows how long he'll be out. And it's tough to say, but if Eli Manning can spread that ball around and get it going, and finally get a running game going, because it looked like last week they finally got something moving. But, only time will tell. But I definitely think this is going to be a Giants victory. I'm going to go with the Giants getting this one 31-14. I think they're finally going to be able to get to 30 points. Obviously, if you guys know, I'm not great with predictions, but still, I think that this is the week that the Giants offense opens up big time. And now let's move to everyone's favorite team. And obviously, if you've seen the last couple weeks, you know that this is, without a doubt, the funniest segment I like talking about. And that is the New York Jets. The New York Jets did something that I was completely shocked by before when it first happened, but I was so happy when it did. And that is that Bryce Petty got his first career start in the NFL. And I was very excited. For once, I actually sat and watched an entire Jets game. That was big. And Bryce Petty got off to a very good start. On just his second drive, the Jets go down and score a touchdown on a trick play. And unfortunately, they missed the extra point, and they were only up 6-3. But unfortunately, after that, the Jets did not allow Petty to make a lot of plays downfield. It's kind of like when Mark Sanchez was first there. You know, he was throwing a lot of passes deep down the field, and the Jets went away from it. And the question is, why don't you go back? There were a couple times where Bryce Petty threw some deep passes that either worked or didn't work, but they never went. But the Jets never went back to it, and that was the frustrating part. And it almost seems like to me that at times that Todd Bowles is not letting Bryce Petty go out and play the way he can play because he's afraid he's going to lose his job, which is kind of crazy in a way. But that might be the reality of the situation. But like I said, if you look at what Bryce Petty did in college, and you look at some of the plays he made against the Los Angeles Rams, he looked pretty good. He looked like a guy that could, if you develop him over time and give him some more chances to play and get in the game, he'll have an opportunity to grow and develop. You know, this is something that's very huge. I mean, look at Bryce Petty. Bryce Petty has already started more games than Jared Goff. Jared Goff will make his first career start this week. And Bryce Petty is just his second year, and he's already gotten a chance. So why don't now you're at that point in the season where it looks like the Jets are definitely not making the playoffs. What do you have to lose? Put him in the game, let him play, and see what you got going into the next year. And if Todd Bowles is this afraid about losing his job, what he should at least do is help this team move forward so that if whoever comes in next, you know, understands what the Jets have. Because it's just ridiculous at this point. Obviously, as I said before, the Jets stands for just enough to succumb. And they do things that just blow my mind and piss me off to no end. And it's just crazy, you know, because I'm a Giants fan, and the Giants don't do very much to piss me off. They do a lot. They do more good than bad. The Jets seem to do so much bad, it becomes a laughing joke, and it pisses off everybody in the NFL. But what I'm saying is that you have to understand this. Bryce Petty needs a chance. You need to give him a chance. You can't go back to Fitzpatrick. We already know that Fitzpatrick cannot do it. We also know that this is his only year on his contract. What are the chances that the Jets are going to want to keep him after having such a mediocre season, or for better terms, a Ryan Fitzpatrick type season? I mean, this is basically ridiculous. How it's so mind-boggling, like I said, that the Jets constantly don't do the right thing, and it's so simple at times. It seems like sometimes it's so simple to see what's in front of their eyes. That Bryce Petty is an unknown. So why don't you see what the unknown is? And even if you don't want to start Petty, why don't you try Christian Hackenberg? He's only suited up once. Why did you draft him if you're never even going to give him a chance to at least see what he can do? Like I said, I saw him playing that preseason game against the Giants, and he looked relatively good. He looked comfortable back there throwing the ball. So you got to give him a chance here, because if you don't, then you just wasted your time. Because the Jets, you know, if they're just going to flush all these guys, including Petty and Hackenberg, then what was the point of ever having them if you were never going to give them a good opportunity? And then they'll have to go out and go get somebody in the draft, or they're going to have to go get a veteran guy, or, God forbid, keep Geno Smith or Ryan Fitzpatrick. But I don't know. This is just crazy to think about just how many times the Jets in their history, especially in the last 6, 7, 8 years, have screwed themselves poorly. I mean, Brett Favre to the Jets, that was ridiculous. You know, the butt fumble with Mark Sanchez and using him poorly, and, you know, stuff with Rex Ryan, that was ridiculous. Signing Tim Tebow as a publicity stunt, I might add, was one of the dumber decisions. And, you know, it's so sad at times to see how many times the Jets have done things to themselves to just make it hard. You know, the Jets are like that girlfriend that you have, and it's like you want to stay with her, but she always continues to break your heart, and that's just like, that's what I feel like sometimes being a Jets fan is. And obviously I think a lot of Jets fans could relate to that. All right, we're going to take another commercial break. When we come back, we still have some NHL to talk about. Obviously, hockey season's still fully underway. We'll talk a little Flyers, Devils, and Rangers. And also, we got my weekly college football previews. So we'll see you when we get back here on the NVP Show.
The way it's always been. The way it always should be. The way it always will be. Because that's just the way it's supposed to be. Jersey Mike's. Be a sub above.
My dream job is to run and manage my own spa one day.
To be the general manager for the Jumeirah Hotel in Abu Dhabi, Dubai.
I feel that Mercier's has prepared me very well for my future in the hospitality industry.
The kitchen is incredible.
You are planning the meal, doing all the costing and the recipes. You're in charge of everything going on in the kitchen.
They really do get you prepared, and they want to make sure that you have a job after college.
When it comes to injuries,
They're not all created equal.
that's why at Performance Spine and Sports Medicine,
Our team of doctors will coordinate and customize your care,
to provide the best treatment options using the area's most advanced medical technology
all with one goal in mind.
to get you back in the game,
We call life
pain-free,
drug-free.
surgery-free. That's what we do here at Performance Spine and Sports Medicine.
Get better faster.
Stay better longer.
Saving your business money is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Tanker Consulting Services, a payment solutions expert, will show you how with a free, detailed, written analysis illustrating your cost savings. We usually uncover savings between 10 and 25%, and sometimes more. We can help your business succeed by providing reliable and secure merchant payment solutions such as merchant services programs, point-of-sale systems, and ATM machines. TCS, one of the leaders in regional credit card processing consulting, offers electronic payments to merchants locally and nationwide through our preferred vendor programs. We work to keep business costs down with a comprehensive suite of quality products, services, and customized credit card processing programs exclusively tailored for your company. TCS is convenient, reliable, and innovative, with customer service available 24/7, 365 days a year. Our in-depth industry knowledge, partnership strategy, and innovative processing solutions allow for a specialized approach to providing merchant bank processing with 100% full fee disclosure. TCS is one-stop shopping for all your merchant services solutions. Our clients save money 100% of the time. Trust Tanker Consulting Services, the knowledgeable, professional, and friendly provider of secure payment services. We set the standard by which others are measured. Call now for a free written analysis. 609-922-0201.
Today's show has been sponsored by More Than Gifts. Come see our new location in Marlton, New Jersey. Not just gifts, but more.
All right, welcome back here to the NVP Show. Let's continue to talk about a lot of sports. You know, obviously we've talked about Major League Baseball, we've talked about the NFL. Now let's talk about some hockey. Obviously, you know, hockey's not talked about a lot in many places, but that's what I'm here for. I'm one of those hockey guys. I can relay some hockey stuff to you people. Let's talk about the Flyers first. They have 19 points so far, and that goes for fourth best in the Metropolitan Division. So they've been relatively good. You know, obviously they've had some pretty good games, but I think the biggest problem for them is their defense. I think that they in a lot of games I've seen a lot of the box scores, I've seen them give up 3-4 goals, and it looks like that they're really struggling on defense and letting their goaltenders Neuwirth and Mason hanging out to dry, and that's a big problem because they have some really good goal scorers in Claude Giroux, Wayne Simmons, Jakub Voracek. They all are very, very talented goal scorers, but they don't have a lot of great defense. They got Braden Shen, they have McDonald still, but other than that, they really don't have some solid defensemen. I think that what they need to do is something that the Devils have been doing, and that is developing your defense in the minor leagues. I think that the Flyers eventually, if unfortunately it gets to that point where it's just too much, where it's just ridiculous on just how poorly their defense is, that's when they should move to trying to get some of the younger players up up here in the NHL and letting them develop here and hopefully continue to build a stronger defense. But yeah, the Flyers, obviously it's still early. Like I said, 19 points, not that bad. And, look, it's just going to, we're still early in the year. We're only into the second month of the year. We're not into the really big grind where we start seeing all the Winter Classic games and get into the heart of the NHL season. So only time will tell to see how the rest of the season goes for the Philadelphia Flyers. Let's move on to the New Jersey Devils for a minute here. Obviously, they came off their tough loss 3-2 2 nights ago to the Anaheim Ducks. They're up 2-0 in the game, and they just let it slip away. And that was something hard to watch, because they should have won that game. If they had won that game, that would have made it 6 wins in a row. They've won 5 of the last 6, so they've looked good. Even with Taylor Hall now out 3 to 4 weeks with an injury, and Mike Camilleri was out due to some personal family issues. But they're still looking good. Obviously, they got a game today. They have a game 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern against the LA Kings. And, if you're a Devils fan, every time you get a chance to play the LA Kings, it's a little bit different than when you play some other teams. You definitely want to beat them up pretty badly. But anyway, look, so far this season, it's been a pleasant surprise. I enjoy watching all these young players come up, these young talented goal scorers. But the one guy that I feel is not getting used correctly is Reed Boucher. Boucher's been up and down in the NHL for the last couple of years. When he was first drafted by the Devils, the year he got drafted, he went back to the OHL, which is the Ontario Hockey League, which is a junior league. He went back and broke Steven Stamkos' record for most goals in a season with 56. Steven Stamkos, ladies and gentlemen. But the Devils, unfortunately, in my opinion, have not used him correctly. If they just let him skate around and shoot the puck, because he is a bona fide goal scorer. He is a guy that has a nose for the goal. He will take a shot when he gets an opportunity. He will not pass it like some of the other guys on this team. And when he gets that puck, his hands, he can make some plays and score some goals. If the Devils just let him go and let him run free, I guarantee you'll see him score a good amount, and he will definitely help make the Devils team a lot better. But other than that, all in all, they've looked good. Corey Schneider and Keith Kincaid have both looked very solid so far. I mean, is that really a surprise? I don't blame the loss last 2 nights ago to Corey. As a matter of fact, most of the time I never blame Corey for the Devils losing, because they lose games 2-1 or 3-2 when the Devils know they need some goal scoring. But basically, look, their defense is still solid. Their goaltending's solid. Their goal scoring is slightly better. It's getting there. Obviously, getting Taylor Hall is big, but he's out with that injury. But hopefully he'll recover very soon, and the Devils hopefully can continue this road trip and can continue this success and try to build for what hopefully could be possibly a playoff appearance. Because obviously, as a Devils fan, knowing that it's been since 2012 when they lost in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals to the LA Kings, that was the last time the Devils were in the postseason. So obviously, I'm holding on for dear life here, and hoping that maybe they can make the playoffs. But again, it's still early in the year, and we'll have to wait and see. And now let's go over the New York Rangers for a minute. The New York Rangers have looked very, very good at 14-4. They've looked very dominant. They look like a team that's on a mission to finally shake off all the critics and the haters out there that are saying, oh, the Rangers are always great in the regular season, but when it comes to the playoffs, they can't do it, and they rely too much on Henrik Lundqvist. Well, they've had some very impressive victories, winning games like 6-1, 5-0, 7-2. They've been blowing out teams left and right. And it's kind of scary in a way. They look like one of the dominant teams, if not the most dominant team in the Eastern Conference, besides the Montreal Canadiens, who have only lost once out of 10 games at home. So that's pretty impressive. But like I said, the Rangers, the one guy that I think has impressed me the most is Jimmy Vesey, the former Hobie Baker Award winner from Harvard, who actually had 3 teams to sign with. He could have signed with the Bruins, the Rangers, or the Devils. I actually thought he had a good shot of signing with the Devils because he would have probably gotten a lot more playing time. But he signed with the New York Rangers. He's on the 3rd line, and seems like he scores every other week. He's been very good and probably one of the better rookies, non-Canadian and junior leagues. He's been one of the better rookie college players I've seen. He's done a tremendous job helping the Rangers do well. And, we're not talking a lot about Henrik Lundqvist because, obviously he hasn't had he hasn't needed to make a whole boatload of saves because if his team's scoring 6-7 goals a night, giving up 1 or 2 goals is not the end of the world. But yeah, no. So far you look at that team that's very impressive, and all in all, this has been a very interesting NHL regular season so far because you look at guys like Austin Matthews and Patrick Laine, those 2 rookies who have come out of nowhere to be 2 of the top goal scorers in the NHL, and then you look at Connor McDavid, who seems to have flourished here in his sophomore year. All in all, I feel like this has the makings to be one of the more entertaining NHL seasons we've seen in a long time. And so without further ado, as we move on from the NHL, without further ado, it's time for my college football previews. And let's talk about them because I know you guys really enjoy it when I come and talk about the NHL games because the college football is one of the bigger things to talk about now. But this week is kind of interesting because there aren't a lot of big games to talk about. There's not that big, top 10 matchup that we've seen the last couple weeks. But boy, what a crazy last week that we have. Not only did number 2, number 3, and number 4 teams in the country all lost for the first time in the same week for the first time since 1985. Number 2, Clemson lost, Michigan lost, and Washington lost. They all got beat last week. But surprisingly, they didn't move very much. Michigan only dropped to number... Michigan's still in the top 4. They're at number 3. Even though they lost to Iowa, which isn't a really good team. But, as you can see, I'm not really thrilled about it. But anyway, Clemson stayed in the top 4. Louisville moved up to 5, and Washington dropped down to 6. But, look... When I saw the college football playoff rankings for this last Tuesday, I couldn't believe it that Michigan stayed. I thought of all teams, they would have at least dropped out of the top 4. I'm not saying they would have dropped to like 15th in the country. I'm saying they should have dropped out at least the top 4. But I couldn't believe it when they said, oh, they only dropped down to 3. So I understand how Clemson could get more benefit of the doubt. They scored 45 points and Deshaun Watson threw for almost 600 yards. He played phenomenal. I don't really blame him for that loss. I mean, Pittsburgh, when it came down to it, did a good job of finding a way to go down and win it. And I thought it was ironic that the last name of the kicker for Pitt, his last name was Blewett. Literally, it said Blewett on it, but he certainly didn't blow it when he kicked the game-winning field goal. But going back to the playoff rankings, this is something that's very hard for me to understand. I don't get. Let me put it this way. I don't like it when it seems like that everybody's being biased. I don't like it when it seems like these guys on the committee are favoring certain teams. Alabama rightfully deserves to be number 1 and should stay there. I think they're going to end up staying there for pretty much the rest of the season, in my opinion. But a team like Michigan, who obviously has been liked by many people for many years and has had a long history of success, finally is back in the spotlight. And I thought the rule was, strike the schedule, and if you lose, you lose. Shouldn't they have gotten a little, the only thing I could think of that they would give Michigan not a lot of, give them credit for is they lost on the road. What if they lost at home? How badly would they have dropped? I mean, this is ridiculous. They lost to a team in which they were 20-plus points favored by on the spread. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous how much they were projected to win. They were projected to win by, I think, almost 28 points going into that game against Iowa. And they could only muster 13 points and lost the game? Why in the world do they deserve to still be in the top 4? That does not look like a top 4 team to me. That looks like a team that underestimated who they played and played like absolute garbage. That is, in my opinion, the most ridiculous thing about this. That's why I think even Clemson deserves a little bit more. And Washington, again, I understand why did Michigan get more of what Washington get? Why did that? It's frustrating. Let's put it that way. It is incredibly frustrating to me just how much the college football playoff rankings seem to be biased. All right. I'm going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, I'm going to go over the couple games that come up today and a big upset that happened 2 nights ago, in the top 5. But, it's definitely going to be an interesting next couple weeks for college football. So we'll see you when we get back here on the NVP Show.
When it's time for Jersey Mike's to give a sub some sizzle, this is the way. The way it's always been. The way it always should be. The way it always will be. Because that's just the way it's supposed to be. Jersey Mike's. Be a sub above.
My dream job is to run and manage my own spa one day.
To be the general manager for the Jumeirah Hotel in Abu Dhabi, Dubai.
I feel that Mercier's has prepared me very well for my future in the hospitality industry.
The kitchen is incredible.
You are planning the meal, doing all the costing and the recipes. You're in charge of everything going on in the kitchen.
They really do get you prepared, and they want to make sure that you have a job after college.
When it comes to injuries,
They're not all created equal.
that's why at Performance Spine and Sports Medicine,
Our team of doctors will coordinate and customize your care.
to provide the best treatment options using the area's most advanced medical technology
All with one goal in mind.
to get you back in the game,
We call life
pain-free,
drug-free.
surgery-free. That's what we do here at Performance Spine and Sports Medicine.
Get better faster.
Stay better longer.
Saving your business money is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Tanker Consulting Services, a payment solutions expert, will show you how with a free, detailed, written analysis illustrating your cost savings. We usually uncover savings between 10 and 25%, and sometimes more. We can help your business succeed by providing reliable and secure merchant payment solutions such as merchant services programs, point-of-sale systems, and ATM machines. TCS, one of the leaders in regional credit card processing consulting, offers electronic payments to merchants locally and nationwide through our preferred vendor programs. We work to keep business costs down with a comprehensive suite of quality products, services, and customized credit card processing programs exclusively tailored for your company. TCS is convenient, reliable, and innovative, with customer service available 24/7, 365 days a year. Our in-depth industry knowledge, partnership strategy, and innovative processing solutions allow for a specialized approach to providing merchant bank processing with 100% full fee disclosure. TCS is one-stop shopping for all your merchant services solutions. Our clients save money 100% of the time. Trust Tanker Consulting Services, the knowledgeable, professional, and friendly provider of secure payment services. We set the standard by which others are measured. Call now for a free written analysis. 609-922-0201.
Today's show has been sponsored by More Than Gifts. Come see our new location in Marlton, New Jersey. Not just gifts, but more.
Welcome back here to the NVP Show, and it's finally time to start my weekly college football games. Let's start with this. We have an interesting game. A couple weeks ago, I believe it's Thursday night. Number 5 Louisville traveled to Houston to take on the Cougars. And not only did Louisville lose, they got blown out. 36-10 was the final. And Lamar Jackson, who is the Heisman Trophy favorite, and he might still be after this one, threw all of 1 touchdown pass. He didn't run for one. He only threw 1 touchdown pass the entire game, and Louisville was shut out the entire first half. Granted, the game was in Houston, so maybe Louisville won't drop very much, but I feel like the chances of Louisville now possibly getting a chance to get into the Final Four is low, because they lost to Clemson, but that was okay. Then they just lost to Houston, who earlier in the year was one of the teams that was possibly projected as a non-top 6 conference team to make it to the Final Four, who now is unranked, and now they just beat Louisville. Greg Ward Jr. looked pretty good. He threw 2 touchdown passes, but he seemed very calm in the pocket. He looked like he was slinging the ball around, and he was just, all in all, he did a great job. What does this do for Lamar Jackson's Heisman race? I don't think very much. I think that Jackson's still the big favorite to win it. I mean, you look at it, it's a stats thing. So you look at it that way, and you say to yourself, okay, well, if you want to look at it stats-wise, he still is blowing everybody else out the door. The only other guy that I could say that has done some stuff that people, or there's only 2 guys, and that would be, J.T. Barrett from Ohio State and, Jabril Peppers from Michigan. Those are the only 2 guys that could be in comparison with him. But I think Lamar Jackson still is the Heisman Trophy favorite, and I think he'll do great. And so basically, and sorry about that, Pete is looking at my jacket, the Giants jacket, and he's wondering what the heck it is. You like that, Pete? And you have Aaron laughing over here, and he just dropped my jacket on the floor. So I thank you very much, Pete, for doing that. So that's what you have when you're friends with an Eagles fan. So there we go with that. But let's keep it going here with the college football previews, and I don't even know what's going on anymore. But the first game we'll talk about is I can't. Pete is just going off right now. But no, let's keep going. Number 2 Ohio State versus Michigan State. Michigan State obviously unranked, 3-7. They've had a very, very disappointing year. By the way, that game's at noon on ESPN if you want to take a look at that. But I was just talking to Aaron about this off camera, and this was something interesting. Let's say for some crazy reason that Michigan State beats Ohio State. And let's say then after that, Ohio State beats Michigan. And let's say that also that Penn State wins out the rest of their games. All 3 teams are 10-2. What do you have then? You possibly then could have Penn State maybe or maybe not get into the top 4 because of that. Unless you have a team like Washington, who only has 1 loss, go out and win out the rest of their games and win the Pac-12 championship. But this is all what's crazy about college football and these playoff rankings that I was saying before. So this is all just a big, big, big thing. But anyway, going back to the game, I just don't think Michigan State's going to come out and play that well. I think Ohio State knows that they can beat Michigan State, even though it's in East Lansing. I think that Ohio State will come away with a big victory. I'm going to say they're going to win this game 45-14. For once, I think I actually might be right about this prediction. I would be pleasantly surprised if I was wrong, and that would just prove that I'm terrible at this. But anyway, let's keep it going. There was one there's an interesting game to me that I was looking at, and that was number 22 Washington State versus Colorado. That game's at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Fox, if you want to tune into that one. And what's interesting about this is that, obviously Washington State is also ranked. So both teams in Washington are both ranked. But one of the things that's blowing my mind is this quarterback, Luke Falk of Washington State. He has thrown for 3,610 yards, 33 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Why is this guy not mentioned as a Heisman Trophy candidate? Maybe it's probably because he plays at Washington State, and maybe because they have 2 losses. I don't know. But the bottom line is that he's had a tremendous season statistically, and he's led the Cougars to a very impressive record and a chance to maybe or maybe not get into the Pac-12 championship game. And the other quarterback for Colorado is Sefo Liufa. And I looked it up, and I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name. Quarterback, Colorado, he's throwing for just over 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Not great, but consistent. Both these teams have the same identical record, and they're both very good. Obviously, but still, I think this should be an interesting matchup. I'm kind of like, sometimes you just look at some games on there and you go, oh, wow, this kind of looks interesting, and that's what I'm saying about this game. I think that this should be an interesting game to watch. I think offensively you're going to have a lot of points scored. I don't see this being as a very big defensive game. I got Washington State win this one, though, 35-32. I think this will be a close game, high-scoring, entertaining. That's what I think. Next game I want to talk about. And this is probably, this will definitely be the best, the highest-rated game to talk about. Number 23 Florida versus number 16 LSU. That game's at 1 p.m. Eastern on the SEC network, if you have it, if you want to watch it, or ESPN3 if you have the ESPN app. The biggest thing that I look from this game is the quarterback battle between Luke Del Rio, who is the son of Raiders head coach Jack Del Rio, and also Purdue transfer Danny Etling. Both these guys actually were at the Elite 11 a couple years ago. And I got a chance to watch it on TV when there was special going on. I saw them both play when they were very young, just coming out of high school. They both looked very good, and now they're both getting a chance to play on a national stage. And it's interesting. But what's interesting about LSU is that they seem to have gotten a lot better since Les Miles was fired. And obviously they played relatively well against Alabama, and they had them on the ropes, but so has several other teams. But I think LSU looks like they're on the verge of becoming a very good team again in the SEC. Maybe not this year, maybe next year. But if they continue to win, they'll make a bowl game, and maybe they'll finish the year on a high note, and that'll be very huge for them. For the Gators, it's trying to get themselves back into the discussion of possibly making it to the SEC title game. I don't really think they have much of a shot, but if they can continue to win, they can definitely make some noise about it. And, the last game I just want to mention is that number 8, Penn State plays Rutgers today. That game is at 8 p.m. Eastern on Big Ten Network. Obviously, you got my boy Garrett Sickles from where I'm from, number 90 defensive end. He's going to be playing the game, and should be fun. Obviously Penn State trying to make some noise in the Big Ten and also in college football. But that'll wrap it up for this week's edition of the MVP Show. But don't go anywhere, because right after I'm done, Pete and Aaron of the Philly Sports Guys will be on here after me talking some more sports. So your sports day is not end just yet. But I want to thank you all very much for watching today's episode of the MVP Show. You can catch this show every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. You can also catch me 3 days a week from Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays on Morning Coffee, 15-minute segment. That's also, where I talk about sports with my man Mark. But yeah, that's it. But thank you very much for watching, and I hope you all have a great day out there. So